Fights erupt in New York over immigrants in New York City, guys. Let's watch this video.
Growing tensions surrounding New York City's dire migrant crisis. A crowd of more than 100 protesters gathered outside of Mayor Eric Adams' residence yesterday to call out the city's failed handling of the situation. Some accused the city of putting migrants before Americans, while fights broke out with nearby counter-protesters. NYPD officers made several arrests after that violence, including this woman who was seen trying to light the American flag on fire before stomping it.
Look at this, guys. If you're stomping on the American flag, that should be in itself grounds for arrest.
Are now becoming increasingly common throughout.
Look at that. She eventually gets arrested for something, or he, I don't know, it gets arrested. That's it.
Remains without an answer to the crisis. So far, over 100,000 migrants have entered the Big Apple in recent weeks, and officials say the city's shelter system is out of room.
100,000 people in recent weeks. There's cities with less than that. The city I grew up in had about 30,000 people. Imagine 100,000 people just completely taking over your city, using up all your resources, trying to stay in your house. Come on, guys. What are you sanctuary cities doing?
Sleep on the streets of this so-called sanctuary city. Tammy, you've been a long-time resident here. What are your thoughts about that?
If it was a real, legit sanctuary city, they would be like, hey, come and stay in my house. Yeah, no problem. But these people are like, no, do not stay in my house. We don't want you here. We don't want you on the streets. It's a complete nuisance to these people. When it comes to their doorsteps, to these rich folks in New York, upstate, it becomes an issue.
And it's now 100,000 people is a lot of people. But to the year to date so far, year 2023 from the Customs Border Patrol page, 2.49 million encounters. Now, that does not say that they've seen everyone, right? But these are the people that we know have moved in. So when you think about a sanctuary city, New York is a sanctuary city. California, sanctuary state. Los Angeles, sanctuary city. Incentivizing, right? Or they're supposed to be ready for this. They've invited people effectively to come, that we are here for you. That's a sanctuary city dynamic. So when you've got, 100,000 people straining this New York area, what about El Paso? What about those small towns, the places where the other 2.3 million people have gone? Certainly 100,000 is not 2.3 million. So this is an issue for the country, but it is in part due to this incentivizing by these messages that have gone international, that we want you to come, we are ready for you to come. So, of course, it makes sense. When people come over the border, they don't say, I want to settle in El Paso. They say, I want to go to New York. Who doesn't want to come to one of the greatest cities in the world? Who doesn't want to go to Los Angeles?
Look at that. They want to go to New York, but they're showing us a picture of them literally sleeping on top of each other in the streets. What kind of living is that? There's no kind of living where you should be sleeping on the streets where there's millions there. There's a ton of millionaires, guys. Actually, Google this. There's 300 millionaires, 724 centile millionaires, and 58 billionaires just in New York City alone, guys. And they go outside their fancy hotels and homes and see a buttload of people just sleeping on top of each other. Come on now.
Crossing that border.
Cheryl, coming to the other New Yorker here, 82% of New Yorkers say that this influx of migrants is a serious problem, and over half of voters disapprove of the governor's job addressing this crisis.
Because Governor Hochul has been absent during this crisis. Mayor Eric Adams has constantly said that he needed help, he needed assistance. He's been crying for federal funding for the Biden administration. It's a joke what the Biden administration has offered the city of New York. To Tammy's point, this is a right to shelter city. This is a sanctuary city. This is what you get. You get what you vote for in New York. Having said that, it's the way that they've handled it that I think is what you're seeing on your screen now play out with these fights that broke out in Staten Island in front of Gracie Mansion over the weekend. New Yorkers are fed up because these communities are being invaded with no notice. You know, there's no input. All of a sudden, it's happened twice. There's 2 different shelters in my neighborhood, guys, and both of these shelters were filled up in the middle of the night.
Ugh.
The buses are showing up. I'm not kidding. They're showing up in they're midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning because they don't want the television cameras out there. The way that they are doing this, it is sneaky. It is underhanded. Curtis Sliwa, I got to say, 3 times he's been arrested in the last 2 weeks. Then he goes home to his Upper West Side apartment with all of his cats. He cares about New York. He loves New York, and he's furious.
Well, respectfully, okay, so Cheryl said you get what you vote for. I voted for Lee Zeldin, and that's why, in part, I mean, when you see this footage, guy, people are angry.
Yep, and to buttress Tammy's point,
Guys, the people that are angry are the poor people like you and me who are out there fighting with these immigrants. Because when they come here, they get put in hotels, if they're lucky, or overrun shelters. And what do you think they're doing in there? They don't have jobs. They're just kind of laying around using whatever free resources they got available to them. You know, they get health care, they get food, they get water, they get place to stay in most cases. And when they do have this, what do you think they're doing? They're out there partying, drinking, causing a ruckus in most cases, criminal activities. And all these people coming here are good old-fashioned people that just want to have the American dream to come here because people tell them, hey, free stuff here, you get this here, you get that here, come here.
point on the math, roughly since Biden took office, we've seen 7 million illegal border crossings, including known gotaways, 7 million. So yeah, 100,000 people, that is going to be a strain on resources, et cetera. It is less than 1.5% of the border crossings on Joe Biden's watch. So I did see Governor Hochul, finally, there was a headline that she was calling out the Biden administration.
Do you think there'd be so much people crossing if the border wall was up? Probably not. What if there was more border patrol agents? Probably not. Better security at the border makes a whole lot of sense, and you guys in New York wouldn't be having this problem if they just did more at the border. Instead, the Biden administration has been pushing to not have better constraints on the border. They just want a full-fledged mountains and droves of people coming in like zombie apocalypse, guys.
Administration. I said, okay, maybe this is too little too late, but at least she's saying something. But then I read what she said, and she tried to blame virtually all of this problem in New York on the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. She said it all started with Greg Abbott putting people on buses. Now, it all started way before Greg Abbott had to deal with these folks, and it starts at the top. And the
Oh, don't blame us for all these people here, New Yorkers. We had nothing to do with this. We didn't vote for Biden and his policies. We didn't follow his actions. Guys, that's all Texas's fault. That's Greg Abbott. He's the reason why you're having this problem. It's not us. Oh, yeah, it's not us. But come election season, I hope you guys remember what these people you elected, especially in New York, have done to your cities and have overrun your cities with immigrants to drain your resources. Don't forget that, guys. Come election season. Remember.
Biden administration's policies, Hochul's solution that she's out there advocating for is for the federal government to give tons of new benefits to the illegal immigrants, which will be part of the incentive problem and just pour even more gasoline on the fire. It's like, by the way, not only can you come to the U.S., federal taxpayers are going to give you, she was talking about health care and education and housing and all this stuff. That's her big solution. Blame the governor of Texas and make the magnet for illegal immigration even stronger. It's wild.
And isn't that the point? So, you know, your expertise is national security. And the point is, as these local economies and cities are being devastated, at its heart, it's a national security origin and issue.
Well, it's the #1 national security threat, our undefended border. We have over 80-something people on the terror watch list who have gotten through just this year alone. So these are people on the terror watch list. Now, I like to say these are the terrorists that are stupid enough to get caught, but still, these are people that are crossing over the border. So you have geopolitical issues and concerns. Guy and I were just talking about China, Russia. You have those concerns from a geopolitical perspective, but this is our #1 national security issue that we face as a country. And, you know, Emily, I was thinking as you guys were having the conversation, the administration has to know this is bad policy. When you have Democratic politicians on the border in Texas saying this isn't good, when you have the mayor of New York City screaming to the Democratic president and to this administration saying this isn't good, I need help, they know these policies are a problem. But here's the thing, I don't think they're paying the price for them politically. And in 2022, they kept the Senate. And when you look at the places that are complaining in New York and in California, these are states to be quite frank, from a political perspective, will go for President Biden in 2024. So until they start to actually pay a price politically, I'm not sure that they're going to change. I remember back when we had so many Syrian migrants and Libyan migrants that were going to Italy and that were going to Germany, and Angela Merkel started to pay a price politically in Germany for the number of migrants that she was taking in. Then they sort of reversed course. I don't think this administration has paid a political price just yet.
The one thing I would say about that, though, is if you look back to 2022, no argument here that it was an underperformance by Republicans nationally, but House Republicans barely won the House back.
That's a good point.
If they hadn't won some of the races that they did in New York and California, Democrats would still have the majority, and Pelosi or whomever would have the gavel. So I think maybe the immigration issue and a few other of the left-wing failures actually did hammer Democrats in places where they thought they would be safer than they actually were. Question is, will that translate elsewhere?
Yeah. Good point.
And I wonder, so to that question, so if we sort of barely started tipping the scales, do you expect that it will in 2024?
Well, it's going to depend on what the public argument is. What is the rhetoric? What are the Republicans going to say? Can they actually not just say, we're not the Democrats, but that here's what our plan is to make a difference here? That we see, and like with crime, we talk about terrorism, over 10,000 encountered criminal aliens, people with a criminal record. You want to know how many of those 10,000 were arrested? About 780. So when we think about what's going on in communities, it's not just terrorism or the use of resources, it's the nature of the criminal aspect and what communities have to deal with. So the Republicans had better explain what they're going to do to reverse this.
Right. And you want to know what communities are having to deal with? Just watch that footage. Hey everyone, I'm Emily.
There you have it, folks. Immigration, New York City, protest. This is going to keep happening until these people that we're electing stop doing this. You need to know who these people are. You need to know their background. You need to know their social media. You need to read their policies. You know everything they're about just as much as you know about your children. However, all these people, because at the end of the day, they're supposed to vote for us in our best interest. And if they're not, whose fault it is? It's ours, because we put them there. And they're right, guys. You need to start paying more attention. So there's this news article that came out. I'm going to read some of it, guys. Biden's key immigration policies allowing hundreds of thousands of immigrants to enter the U.S. faces trial this week. A key part of President Biden's immigration policy, the humanitarian parole program, which allows up to 30,000 people in Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to enter the U.S. monthly, will face trial to determine the legality. Later this week, the program, which was created for Venezuelans in the fall of 2022, was expanded again in January. Allows migrants from these countries to find a financial sponsor in the U.S. and then grants them a 2-year stay. The Biden administration argues that the program is vital in reducing the stress at the U.S.-Mexico border, with 21 Republican states claiming in a lawsuit that the administration is inappropriately using the program, usurping the power of Congress to do so. The Republican lawsuit threatening to end the program will be heard by Judge Drew Tipton, a Trump appointee in Victoria, Texas, beginning Thursday. A decision will come later. Roughly 181,000 people have entered the U.S. under the humanitarian parole program since Biden launched the initiative. In the Texas trial, Republican states are expected to argue the Biden administration usurped the power of Congress by using the humanitarian parole program to allow up to 360,000 people annually into the U.S. from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. The Republican states have described the program as an overreach of parole power, initially intended to be used on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. In response, the Biden administration has argued that it was forced to utilize the program in the absence of congressional action to overhaul the nation's immigration system, which continues to see sharp post-COVID increase. Also, the administration further claims it has the power to use the humanitarian parole program this way and credits the initiative with drastically reducing migrant crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border. Program applicants still must pass background checks and have financial sponsors in the U.S. to vouch for them. If approved, must fly into the U.S. airport instead of crossing at the southern border. They can then stay in the U.S. for 2 years in effort to obtain a work permit. There are no unique factors to determine a sponsor, and nearly anyone can be one provided they fill out the paperwork. But the administration's strategy is just one lawsuit away from collapse. Blas Nunes Nieto, the Assistant Secretary for Border and Immigration Policy with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, said in a recent conference call that the government is worried about the upcoming trial and potentially losing the case, the Associated Press reported. It will appeal a loss, Nunes Nieto said. Tipton previously ruled against the Biden administration on the immigration case. The federal government attempted but failed to have the military and parole case transferred to the Tipton's courtroom. The Biden administration's current use of the program appears to be one of the largest single uses of military and parole authority in U.S. history. The program has been previously used to provide entry to Vietnamese, Cambodians, Laotians, and the 1970s Iraqi Kurds who helped the U.S. in the 1990s, the Gulf War, and the Cubans fleeing their country at various times, according to the date from the Cato Institute. The U.S. also uses military and parole power to grant entry to tens of thousands of Ukrainians following Russia's February 2020 invasion. The Biden administration started the program for Venezuelans in October 22 and added Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans in January. So this program sounds very beneficial for people who are fleeing countries of war, poverty, hunger, strife. If their countries are being under attack, like Russia, obviously the Ukrainians come to America, no problem. But if you're coming here because politicians, mainly Democrats and woke news media, are telling you to come here because you're going to get health insurance, food, water, shelter, that's not right. That's not okay at all, guys. We got homeless people, homeless veterans on the streets right now. They don't get jack diddly squat. And there you are, people who are not even citizens of the country coming here and getting to take advantage of all of our resources. And it's just not fair, guys. Come elections, we need to do something about it. Seriously, this is just gonna get worse. It said right here, it was acted in October 2022. They added Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans in January. So since October, they've added a couple more countries to the list. I guarantee you they're going to continue to add more countries to the list. I wouldn't be surprised if the whole continent of South America was added on there eventually. I mean, where's the stop to it? I don't see that there is a stop unless we vote them out or impeach them or they resign. That's probably that's pretty much the only way, guys. Guys, thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, you like my content, please like, subscribe, and share the video. Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Have a good day.